The Incident and Earth's Warning, the Garden World Colony. World Meridian 5 had been humanity's proudest achievement in the stars. For 15 years, humans and aliens lived side by side in carefully planned settlements scattered across the planet's 3 continents. The Galactic Assembly had approved the joint colony as proof that younger species like humanity could integrate peacefully into the broader community of starfaring civilizations. Children of both species attended the same schools. Parents worked together in research facilities, and neighbors shared meals despite their biological differences. Sarah Chen walked through the residential quarter where human and alien families had built their homes. She served as the colony's cultural liaison officer, responsible for smoothing over the inevitable misunderstandings that arose when different species tried to live together. Most days, her job involved explaining why humans needed more water than the silicon-based Crethians, or why certain human foods were toxic to the methane-breathing Yulari. It was mundane work, but Sarah believed deeply in the colony's mission. Her communicator chimed with an emergency signal. Sarah's heart dropped as she read the message. There had been an incident in Sector 7, the newest residential area. A security team had responded to a perceived threat. 1 human child was dead. By the time Sarah reached the scene, emergency crews had already cordoned off the area. She pushed through the crowd of shocked colonists, both human and alien, until she saw the small covered form lying in what had been a playground. Security Commander Vex stood nearby, his forearms crossed over his armored chest. His species, the Draxian, made up the majority of the Assembly's peacekeeping forces across colony worlds. "What happened?" Sarah demanded, fighting to keep her voice steady. Vex's translator device rendered his clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. Child was carrying weapon. Refused verbal commands. Security protocol required neutralization of threat. Sarah pulled back the cover. The girl was perhaps 6 years old, dressed in bright play clothes. Next to her body lay a plastic toy, a colorful water gun shaped like a fantastical creature. Sarah's hands trembled as she picked up the toy. It weighed almost nothing and dripped water onto the pavement. "This is what your team thought was a weapon?" Sarah's voice cracked. "This is what justified killing a child?" Vex remained unmoved. Security cannot determine weapon status by appearance alone. Multiple warnings were issued. Child raised weapon toward security personnel. Sarah looked at the trajectory markers the security team had placed around the scene. The child had been running toward the playground equipment, laughing with 2 alien children who had fled when the security team arrived. She had been playing. She had been 6 years old. She had been alive 10 minutes ago. The Assembly's verdict news of the incident spread through human space faster than light-speed communications. Within hours, protests erupted on Earth and every human colony world. Within days, Earth's government formally demanded justice from the Galactic Assembly. Ambassador James Rodriguez stood before the Assembly's Judicial Council on their capital world. Behind him, holographic displays showed the scene from every angle. Security footage clearly showed young Emma Martinez running and playing. Her toy raised in innocent mimicry of the games children had played for generations. "The evidence is clear," Rodriguez stated to the 7-member council. "An unarmed child was killed for playing. We demand that the security team be held accountable, and that protocols be changed to prevent such tragedies." The chief judge, a crystalline being named Executor Thane, reviewed the materials with multifaceted eyes that refracted light in geometric patterns. When Thane finally spoke, the translation came through cold and formal. The security team followed established protocols for potential threat situations. While the death of any child is unfortunate, the team acted within the boundaries of Assembly law. No charges will be filed. Colony security procedures will be reviewed but not necessarily amended. This matter is closed. Rodriguez felt the words like physical blows. Closed? A 6-year-old girl is dead because trained soldiers couldn't distinguish a toy from a weapon. How is this justice? Justice, Thane replied, is adherence to law. The law was followed. Your emotional response, while understandable for your species, does not change legal reality. The other council members said nothing. Their silence confirmed the verdict. Rodriguez transmitted the decision back to Earth, knowing that everything was about to change. Earth's Council of War General Marcus Webb stood at the head of the Situation Room deep beneath Geneva. Around the table sat representatives from every major power on Earth. But today there were no divisions between nations. Today, humanity spoke with one voice. The assembly has made their position clear, Webb stated, his words projected to similar rooms around the planet. They will not hold their people accountable. They will not change their protocols. They have told us, in effect, that human children are acceptable casualties in the name of their security procedures. President Elena Vasquez of the Earth Coalition leaned forward. What are our options, General? Webb activated the central display, showing a star map peppered with thousands of markers. For 20 years since first contact, we've been preparing for the possibility that the assembly might not have humanity's best interests at heart. Every diplomatic mission, every cultural exchange, every trade negotiation has included intelligence gathering. We know where their command centers are located. We know their communication networks. We know their military capabilities. Most importantly, they have no idea what our actual capabilities are. Dr. Rachel Kim, director of Earth's Advanced Weapons Division, stood up. We've been intentionally hiding our technological progress. The assembly thinks we're still using primitive fusion drives and kinetic weapons. They have no knowledge of our quantum disruption technology, our dimensional phase drives, or our neural network warfare capabilities. Are you suggesting we go to war with the entire Galactic Assembly? Asked Chairman Liu Wei, his expression grave. I'm suggesting, Webb replied carefully, that we send them a message, one they cannot ignore and cannot misinterpret. We have assets positioned throughout their territory, sleeper agents who have been living as ordinary civilians for years, manufacturing facilities that appear to produce consumer goods but can be converted to weapons production, communication nodes that give us access to their entire data network. Colonel Sarah Hayes, Director of Human Intelligence Operations, brought up another display. We have 847 operatives embedded in assembly space. They range from teachers and merchants to technicians working in critical infrastructure facilities. At my command, they can simultaneously strike targets across 400 worlds. President Vasquez looked around the room at faces filled with anger and determination. If we do this, there's no going back. The assembly will respond with force. Let them, Webb replied. They killed our child and called it acceptable. Let them discover what humanity finds acceptable. The vote was unanimous. Operation Reckoning was approved. The message went out through every communication channel in assembly space simultaneously. It appeared on military networks, civilian broadcasts, government systems, and private communications. It could not be blocked, traced, or stopped. 3 words in every known language. We are coming. Attached to those 3 words was a data package that sent the assembly's intelligence services into immediate panic. Complete schematics of human military vessels that were decades beyond what the assembly had believed possible. Detailed maps showing human assets positioned throughout their territory. Technical specifications for weapons that violated several fundamental principles of physics as the assembly understood them. Most disturbing was the list of names. Every member of the security team that had killed Emma Martinez. Every member of the Judicial Council that had cleared them. Every assembly official who had been involved in the decision. Their locations, their schedules, their family connections all laid out in meticulous detail. The final attachment was a simple image. A memorial photo of Emma Martinez, smiling in her school uniform, holding a trophy from a science fair. Beneath it, one sentence, "You killed her for playing. Now you will learn what happens when humans stop playing." First Strike Commander David Foster stood on the bridge of the stealth ship Retribution, watching his tactical display. His vessel was one of 50 positioned throughout assembly space, each one invisible to every sensor system the aliens possessed. The dimensional phase technology kept them existing slightly outside normal spacetime, observable but untouchable. All ships report ready, his communications officer announced. Awaiting your command, sir. Foster looked at the chronometer. In 30 seconds, Operation Reckoning would begin. 50 ships would simultaneously strike 50 targets across the assembly's territory. Military communications hubs, fleet command centers, government installations. Each strike carefully calculated to cripple the assembly's ability to coordinate a response. He thought about Emma Martinez, a child he had never met, but whose death had changed everything. He thought about his own daughter, safe on Earth, who would grow up in whatever galaxy emerged from this conflict. All ships, Foster commanded, execute operation. The Retribution phased back into normal space directly above the assembly's primary military coordination facility on the planet Draxus Prime. For 3 seconds, They were visible and vulnerable. That was all the time they needed. The quantum disruption pulse hit the facility like a wave of impossible physics. Matter didn't explode or burn. It simply ceased to follow the normal rules of reality. Structural supports forgot how to maintain their molecular bonds. Electronic systems found that electrons no longer flowed through their circuits. The entire complex, a structure housing 3,000 personnel and coordinating the activities of 50,000 warships, quietly collapsed into a pile of disassociated atoms. The retribution phased back out of normal space before any defense systems could respond. Across the galaxy, 49 other targets suffered similar fates. In less than 5 minutes, the Galactic Assembly had lost its ability to coordinate military operations across half its territory. On Draxus Prime, Executor Thane received emergency reports from across the Assembly. The pattern was clear and terrifying. Humans had struck simultaneously at targets that should have been impossible to locate, using weapons that should have been impossible to build, with precision that should have been impossible to achieve. The message was unmistakable. Humanity had been holding back. The species the Assembly had considered technologically inferior had been concealing capabilities that dwarfed anything in the Assembly's arsenal. And they had positioned assets to use those capabilities across the entire galaxy. Thane's crystalline structure refracted light in patterns that indicated deep concern. The Assembly had made a terrible miscalculation. They had believed humanity would accept their verdict because the Assembly was large and powerful. They had forgotten that size and power meant nothing if your enemy could strike anywhere, any time, with weapons you couldn't defend against. The war had begun, but the Assembly was already losing. They just didn't know how badly yet. Total War and the Price of Justice. The Network Falls agent Monica Torres had lived on the Assembly capital world of Zenthara for 12 years. To her alien neighbors, she was simply a human engineer who maintained atmospheric processors in the city's environmental district. She had friends among the local population, attended community events, and had even learned to appreciate the complex musical traditions of the Zentharian people. But Monica Torres was also Lieutenant Commander Torres of Earth Intelligence Operations. Every maintenance shift for the past decade had given her access to the planetary infrastructure systems. Every friendly conversation had provided intelligence about security protocols. Every cultural event had allowed her to map the locations of key government facilities. When the activation signal came through her neural implant, Monica felt no hesitation. She thought of Emma Martinez, the little girl who had died for playing. She thought of the cold words from Executor Thane, dismissing that death as acceptable. She finished her breakfast calmly, kissed her Zentharian neighbor's child goodbye as the family headed to school, and then opened the hidden compartment in her apartment wall. The quantum virus had been designed specifically to target the Assembly's faster-than-light communication network. Unlike human quantum systems that used isolated particle pairs, the Assembly's network relied on a shared quantum field that connected every communications hub across their territory. It was more efficient than Earth's system, but it had one critical weakness. A properly designed virus could spread through the entire network faster than any security system could respond. Monica uploaded the virus into the central communications hub during her regular maintenance cycle. To any observer, she was simply running diagnostic tests. The virus appeared as normal background radiation in the quantum field. Within seconds, it had spread to every connected hub in the system. Within minutes, it had jumped to neighboring systems. Within an hour, the entire Assembly communication network was collapsing. Across 400 worlds, similar scenarios played out. Human agents who had lived peaceful lives for years suddenly activated hidden protocols. The history teacher on Crethus Prime who uploaded military-grade malware into the planetary defense grid. The merchant on Ular Station, who had been slowly stockpiling explosives in his warehouse for 8 years. The doctor on Draxion, who had been mapping the genetic weaknesses of the security forces she treated. The Assembly's quantum network died in a cascade of failures that left military commanders unable to coordinate with their fleets, government officials unable to communicate with their colonies, and security forces unable to access their databases. In less than 2 hours, the most advanced communication system in the known galaxy had been reduced to isolated pockets of local networks. The Council's desperation executor, Thane stood in the emergency command center deep beneath Xanthera's government complex. The crystalline being's normally geometric light patterns had become chaotic and fragmented, reflecting the panic that even their species could not fully suppress. "Status report," Thane demanded of the military coordinator. General Krex, a massive Draxian warrior with decorations from 50 campaigns, consulted his tactical displays with 4 arms moving frantically. "Communication with 73% of our fleet has been lost. We have confirmed attacks on 127 military installations. Human forces are using weapons technology we cannot classify. Our ships cannot track their vessels. Our sensors cannot predict their attacks. Our defenses cannot stop their weapons. How is this possible?" Thane's voice carried harmonics of disbelief. 20 years ago, humans had barely achieved faster-than-light travel. Their military consisted of primitive kinetic weapons and fusion reactors. "Apparently," said Intelligence Director Vorn, her tentacles writhing in patterns that indicated extreme stress, "they were hiding their true capabilities. Every technological assessment we conducted was based on information they deliberately fed us. Every military evaluation we performed was watching them demonstrate obsolete equipment. We have been systematically deceived for 2 decades. Thane accessed the data that human agents had transmitted along with their declaration of war. The technical specifications were nightmare fuel for any military planner. Dimensional phase drives that allowed ships to exist partially outside normal spacetime. Quantum disruption weapons that could selectively disable the laws of physics in targeted areas. Neural network warfare capabilities that could compromise any digital system. Biological weapons tailored to specific species at the genetic level. But most terrifying was the strategic positioning. The humans had embedded agents throughout assembly space for years, waiting for this moment. They had mapped every critical facility, identified every weakness, and positioned assets to exploit them. The attack was not opportunistic. It was the execution of a plan that had been decades in the making. "Can we negotiate?" Thane asked, knowing the answer but needing to hear it confirmed. "They have made no demands," Vorn replied. "They have issued no terms. They simply declared war and began attacking. Based on their targeting priorities, they are systematically eliminating everyone involved in the Martinez incident and its aftermath." Thane reviewed the casualty reports. The security team that had killed Emma Martinez had been eliminated in the first wave of attacks. 3 of the 7 Judicial Council members were confirmed dead. The others had gone into hiding, but human agents seemed to know exactly where they were. "What about their homeworld?" General Krex suggested. "If we can threaten Earth itself, they might be willing to discuss terms." "We have dispatched the 3rd Battle Fleet," Vorn confirmed. 200 warships are en route to Earth's solar system. They should arrive in 48 hours. Thane felt a fragment of hope. Perhaps the threat to their home world would force the humans to negotiate. Perhaps this war could still end before it consumed the entire galaxy. That hope died when the next report arrived. Earth's Defense's Admiral Chen. Wei watched the approaching assembly fleet from the command center on Luna. 200 warships was the largest force the assembly had ever sent against a single target. They were expecting to find Earth defended by perhaps 50 human vessels using technology the assembly understood. They were going to be disappointed. "Fleet disposition?" Chen asked his tactical officer. "The orbital defense grid is fully activated. All 72 platforms are armed and tracking. The home fleet has deployed in defensive formation. 16 carriers, 48 cruisers, 96 destroyers, and 300 support vessels. The dimensional mines are in position. The quantum disruption field generators are online. We are ready, Admiral." Chen allowed himself a slight smile. The assembly fleet was walking into a trap that had been prepared for exactly this scenario. Earth's defenses were not designed to fight a conventional space battle. They were designed to ensure that any force attempting to attack humanity's homeworld would regret that decision. When they reached the outer marker, "Activate Protocol Aegis," Chen ordered. The Assembly's 3rd Battle Fleet emerged from faster-than-light travel at the edge of Earth's solar system. Fleet Commander Vex, leader of the force, studied his tactical displays with satisfaction. He saw a single planet defended by what appeared to be a modest fleet and some orbital installations. Overwhelming this defense would be straightforward. "All ships advance in attack formation," Vex commanded. "Primary target is the orbital installations. Once they are destroyed, begin bombardment of the planetary surface." The fleet moved deeper into the solar system, passing the orbit of Neptune, That was when the dimensional mines activated. These were not conventional explosives. Each mine created a localized dimensional phase shift that pulled nearby objects partially out of normal space-time. To an observer, ships caught in the effect appeared to freeze in mid-motion, their crews experiencing time at a drastically different rate from the rest of the universe. 40 assembly warships vanished from tactical displays, caught in dimensional bubbles where they would remain trapped until humans chose to release them. The fleet formation dissolved into chaos as ships tried to avoid invisible mines while maintaining their attack vector. Activate the quantum disruption field, Chen ordered. A network of satellites orbiting at various distances from the sun came online, generating a field that selectively altered the laws of physics throughout the inner solar system. Within the field, the assembly's fusion reactors began behaving erratically. Their faster-than-light drives stopped functioning properly. Even basic electronics experienced random failures. The assembly fleet found itself crawling through space at sub-light speeds, unable to retreat and barely able to maintain formation. That was when Earth's home fleet attacked. Human warships phased in and out of normal space, striking from impossible angles and disappearing before the assembly could return fire. Each attack was precise and devastating. The quantum disruption weapons did not destroy ships explosively. They simply made the matter comprising those ships forget how to maintain its structural integrity. Vessels came apart at the molecular level, their crews dying before they even understood what had happened. The ultimate weapon fleet commander Vex watched his fleet being systematically destroyed and realized the terrible truth. The humans had never been the primitive species the assembly had believed them to be. They had been planning for this confrontation since first contact, preparing defenses and developing weapons while presenting a facade of technological inferiority. All ships, full retreat, Vex ordered, knowing it was too late. Sir, faster-than-light drives are not responding, his navigator reported. We are trapped in their disruption field. Vex accessed the emergency quantum communicator, a backup system that used different principles than the standard network. He needed to warn the assembly about what they were really facing. The communication reached Synthara just as Admiral Chen was preparing to demonstrate humanity's most devastating weapon. Dr. Sarah Kim stood in the weapons laboratory deep beneath the lunar surface, making final adjustments to the device that would change galactic warfare forever. The Cascade Generator was the culmination of 20 years of theoretical physics research and captured alien technology. The assembly fleet is contained in the disruption field. Admiral Chen's voice came through her communicator. Are you ready to proceed with the demonstration? Sarah looked at the device that could unmake reality itself. The Cascade Generator did not simply destroy matter or alter local physics. It created a spreading wave of quantum instability that could affect entire star systems. Within the affected area, the fundamental constants that governed reality became variable. Chemistry stopped working consistently. Nuclear fusion became unpredictable. Even gravity fluctuated randomly. Admiral, if we activate this weapon, we create a zone of unstable space-time that will persist for decades. Any ships entering the affected area will be destroyed. Trade routes will need to be rerouted. Habitable planets could become uninhabitable. I understand, Doctor. The Assembly needs to understand what they have provoked. They need to know that humanity has weapons they cannot defend against and cannot match. Activate the Cascade Generator. Sarah entered the activation sequence. The device drew power from the same quantum field that connected all matter in the universe. For a moment, nothing seemed to happen. Then space itself began to ripple. The wave of quantum instability spread outward from the lunar surface at the speed of light. When it reached the assembly fleet trapped in Earth's defensive field, the effects were immediate and horrifying. Ships did not explode. They transformed. Molecular bonds began rearranging randomly. Metal became gas. Atmosphere became solid. Living tissue underwent transformations that were mercifully brief as neurons stopped functioning consistently. The entire third battle fleet of the Galactic Assembly ceased to exist in any meaningful way. In its place was a debris field of matter that no longer followed predictable physical laws. The Surrender Executor. Thane watched the sensor recordings of Earth's defensive action with a feeling that transcended fear. The humans had not just defeated an attacking fleet. They had demonstrated a weapon that could make entire regions of space uninhabitable, a weapon that could spread like a disease, consuming star systems and rendering them useless for centuries. We need to open negotiations immediately, Thane stated, before they decide to use that weapon offensively. On what terms? General Krex asked, his warrior pride wounded by the admission of defeat. Whatever terms they demand, Thane replied. They have proven they can strike anywhere, anytime, with weapons we cannot counter. They have agents embedded throughout our territory. They can destroy our communication networks, cripple our military infrastructure, and create zones of space where physics itself stops working normally. We are not fighting a war. We are being systematically dismantled. The message went out through emergency channels, carried by courier ships since the quantum network remained compromised. A request for negotiations. An acknowledgement that the assembly had been wrong about the Martinez incident. An offer to discuss terms. The response came within hours. Ambassador Rodriguez, the same human who had stood before the Judicial Council demanding justice, appeared on holographic displays throughout assembly space. The Galactic Assembly killed a 6-year-old child and called it acceptable, Rodriguez stated, his voice cold and formal. You denied justice. You refused accountability. You made it clear that human lives had no value in your system of law. So we have decided to educate you about the value of human life. The hologram changed to show a list of demands. Complete dismantling of all assembly security protocols that authorized lethal force against unarmed civilians. Public acknowledgement that the killing of Emma Martinez was murder, not a regrettable incident. Criminal trials for all personnel involved in the incident and its cover-up. Compensation to the Martinez family. Representation for humanity on the Assembly Judicial Council. Mutual Defense Treaty recognizing Earth as an equal partner rather than a junior member. Full disclosure of all Assembly military capabilities and strategic assets. These terms are non-negotiable, Rodriguez continued. You have 72 hours to accept them. For every hour past that deadline, we will eliminate one Assembly military installation. We have already identified 500 targets. We can continue this demonstration of human determination for as long as necessary. The hologram shifted again, showing footage of Emma Martinez playing in that garden moments before her death. Her laughter echoed through command centers across the galaxy. You killed her for playing, Rodriguez said quietly. Now you will learn that humanity does not play when it comes to protecting our children. The New Order. 71 hours later, the Galactic Assembly formally accepted Earth's terms. The trials began within a week, broadcast live throughout the galaxy. The security team that had killed Emma Martinez was found guilty of murder. Commander Vex, who had given the order to fire, received a life sentence in a human prison facility. The Judicial Council members who had cleared them were removed from office and charged with obstruction of justice. Executor Thane, who had delivered the original verdict, resigned and faced criminal proceedings for gross negligence in judicial duties. The Assembly's security protocols were rewritten with input from human experts in law enforcement and child safety. New guidelines emphasized de-escalation, proper threat assessment, and absolute prohibition on using lethal force against minors except in the most extreme circumstances. Earth gained 3 seats on the Assembly's Judicial Council and 2 seats on the Military Coordinating Committee. Human observers were stationed at every major Assembly installation to ensure compliance with the new protocols. But the real change was deeper than policy. The Galactic Assembly had learned that humanity was not a species to be dismissed or patronized. They had learned that humans prepared for contingencies decades in advance. They had learned that human ingenuity could produce weapons that defied the Assembly's understanding of physics. Most importantly, they had learned that threatening human children carried a price that could destroy civilizations. Ambassador Rodriguez stood in the memorial garden on Colony World Meridian 5, where a statue of Emma Martinez had been erected. The 6-year-old girl was portrayed mid-run, her toy water gun held high, frozen in a moment of joy that had been stolen from her. Around the statue, children of a dozen species played together under the watchful eyes of security personnel who had been extensively retrained. These guards would never again mistake a toy for a weapon. They would never again see a playing child as a threat. She would have liked this, said Maria Martinez, Emma's mother, standing beside Rodriguez. She always wanted the human and alien kids to play together. They will, Rodriguez promised. And they will do it safely, because the galaxy now understands what happens when they don't. The war had lasted only 3 weeks from first strike to surrender. In that time, humanity had demonstrated capabilities that terrified the older species. The quantum network had been restored, but now included human-designed security systems. The communication hubs had been rebuilt with human engineers overseeing their construction. The military installations had been reinforced, but with human observers ensuring they never again targeted innocent civilians. Earth had not conquered the Galactic Assembly. They had forced it to evolve. The old system that allowed children to be killed without consequence was gone. The new system recognized that justice had to apply equally to all species, or it meant nothing at all, and throughout the galaxy, embedded human agents returned to their peaceful lives as teachers, merchants, and engineers. But everyone now knew what they truly were. Insurance policies. Guarantees that humanity would never again be dismissed or ignored. The message had been received. The galaxy had learned, and Emma Martinez, who had died playing in a garden, had become the catalyst for change that would reshape interstellar civilization for generations to come.